Well, a warm welcome to everyone here today. Here, interesting word. Very warm in spirit, although I'm staring out at a gloomy, fog-filled day just outside Cambridge. Hopefully there's a bit of sun where you are. We will, of course, the whole purpose of the meeting is to give you a high-speed update on some of the key things that have been happening in the year. We have full reports for you, of course. So let's move then to the second item on our agenda, any declarations of conflicts of interest. If members could just notify BERA staff of any conflicts of interest, that would be great. I'm going to give my report shortly as part of item 4, but first of all, item 3 is the amendments to the Articles of Association that I believe Nick is going to address.
Yes, thank you, Dom, and yeah, welcome to everyone out there watching us today. I won't say very much in addition to the paper. It is hopefully very self-explanatory that in the unprecedented times in which we are at the moment, and with the degree of uncertainty that we've got, and also the delays to some of our activities, but also importantly external activities, the discussion and the recommendation from Council as a whole is that we extend the current term of office of our President and newly elected Vice President, Vivian, for a further year each, to provide a degree of extra stability to the organisation over the next year or two. So that comes with the full endorsement of our council and asking us to make that decision today. So that is the request we are putting. So we will do this as a poll. We will be collecting the votes and recording them in the minutes of the meeting afterwards. Okay, thank you everyone for participating in that. I think we now go into the annual reports from the office holders of BERA. So I think I pass back to you, Dom.
Thanks everyone very much indeed for the voting, which I think gets us over the magic figure of at least 25. So we are taking them as read, as it were, the reports that we've all prepared. And so each of us will just say a few things for no more than 5 minutes in relation to each report. And the most important thing I want to do is, as I said in my report, offer my profound thanks to all BERA staff, including Nick Johnson for his leadership, and for all members of BERA and everyone connected to BERA in this extraordinary year. The amount of work that BERA office staff have had to do to literally transform BERA from a mainly physical event-only organisation to one that is now fully digital, as today shows, is nothing short of extraordinary. So thanks very much. I also want to warmly thank Gary McCulloch, who was my predecessor as president. I know Gary well, and he's been a wonderful support and leader in all the work he's done. And so we hope he'll maintain his connections with BERA for many years. I've mentioned in my report what I've called education as an academic discipline. I'm going to say a couple of words about that, focusing more on the sort of the next steps, if you like, because I've given some information about what led up to it. We're very excited to have another brand new initiative, the BERA College of Reviewers. That college is already working, and we are planning to do some further strategic appointments to that college in due course. I'll talk in a moment about the World Education Research Association. And I think I want to start, though, by highlighting the presidential roundtables, partly because, and mainly because, we've just successfully run the first one of my presidency. and it couldn't have been a better topic: children and young people's mental health and well-being. This was led by Professor Jane Hurry from the UCL Institute of Education. I know Jane well, and it's been a terrific opportunity and a terrific event. The next stages will be to release some of the outcomes of that event. And one of the important things for me is building on this tradition of presidential roundtables. How can we unite research and policy and practice and make progress and have these documents and events as lasting contributions from BERA to important topics? So very, very excited about that. I'm just going to slightly look forward. I'm going to assume that you've read, or can always read afterwards, my report. I'm going to start with the State of the Discipline Initiative. Very grateful to colleagues who began work on this. I was there at one of the inaugural meetings, where our first thought was we need to know more about people's experiences and identities in the world of education research. We agreed, BERA Council agreed, to start with a systematic review of published research, that will inform the work. We commissioned for that. The team was appointed. They're well into the work. That will inform a survey that we hope will be responded to by as many education researchers as possible to help us learn as much as we can. Another looking forward issue for me is the World Education Research Association. Ever since I became president, we've been developing initiatives and communication with WERA. All is going well, including some work that a number of us are doing on academic writing workshops for colleagues, generally speaking, early career researchers in places in the world where the help can be most useful. Finally, from me, just to say that maybe this is less eye-catching, but we're also taking forward BERA's strategic plan. So we already have some powerful ideas established under Professor Gemma Moss's presidency that we've continued to work with, but now we're going to really hone what we want to do most of all, and also how we can decide what needs doing first of all in the forthcoming year, and then which things can follow. Anyway, for now, that's enough from me. And so our next item is the Publications Committee report. And hopefully...
Hello. So you've got access to the full report, but I just wanted to use the opportunity to pick out some key points. So as most people will know, we worked to bring all of our BERA journals under one publisher, Wiley, and that agreement, I think we begin to see is bearing fruit. In particular, I would pick out the fact that now on the Wiley website, there is a BERA hub, which means that all of our journals are in one place, which I think helps people to see, first of all, the journals that we are responsible for, but to see the range of places where they might wish to submit their work. Also, in terms of submitting articles, there is now a free format submission system, which means that you don't have to worry about formatting for particular Wiley journals, that actually you can submit in a free format and they will go to the appropriate journal that you identify. And also there is arrangements for an article transfer network between our journals. All of these, I think, bring real benefits to our members. and also our in-house publications. And I think in this period of time, the blog has been growing from strength to strength, but the work of the blog team led by Jerry, I think has really borne fruit, as we have a lot of engagement, particularly around pulling together special collections really quite instantly to respond to situations, not least COVID obviously, and research intelligence, our own members journal, which is another of the benefits which the Publications Committee is responsible for overseeing. And we've had some interesting and stimulating special issues of research intelligence. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in coordinating and bringing together an issue of research intelligence to contact us with their ideas. Just very quickly about the 4 journals. The curriculum journal was brought under Wiley in January 2020 and made a breakthrough development, which we're pleased with and we'd like to see more of, by actually bringing out an issue that was available both in English and in Welsh, which was looking at the exciting developments in Wales around the new curriculum there. In terms of Burge, we've seen a new membership of the editorial board, and thank you to BERA members who serve on our editorial boards. It's very valuable service to the association. And I'd like to thank Kate Watson, who's stepping down as chair of the editorial board after many years of service. BJET, celebrating its 50th anniversary, goes from strength to strength, and the BJET Fellowship, again, is another aspect of our work, which I think really helps to showcase BERA. And then Review of Education, led by Stephen Gorard and his team in Durham. I'd like to thank Carol Torgerson, who stood down as a member of that team. And again, Review of Education is really beginning to make its mark within academic publishing. And I'd like to just finish by saying that this is my last report to the AGM as chair of the Publications Committee. I've actually already, in a way, handed over to Ros McClellan. The timing of this AGM and the actual timing of Publications Committee meetings means that she's already firmly at the head of leading the Publications Committee, and I couldn't be more pleased. She was a member of the Publications Committee, and I can say that we're in very safe hands. Thank you.
Can I just say, Vivian, on behalf of BERA and our membership, thank you so much for all the leadership you've shown on the Publications Committee. I hope I will be able to continue your work seamlessly, but I know you've left it in a really good state. So thank you ever so much for that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jerry Czerniawski and I am the chair of the Engagement Committee. Great, I was going to say great to see everybody, but I can't, but it's lovely to share some time with everybody here. Huge thanks to everybody that works on the committee with me. That's to Ruth Boyesk, Oliver Hooper, Kevin Smith, Marlon Moncrief, new members, Jan Georgeson and Carmel Capewell, and a very big thanks to Sarah Fleming, who is the Membership Engagement Manager. The Engagement Committee, particularly in these particular times, would have anticipated that over the last few months with COVID, we would have seen a drastic drop in numbers for obvious reasons. But in fact, membership remains incredibly robust. We've got 2,230 members and our largest cohort of teacher members this year, with 360 members being teachers within that overall number. That is quite extraordinary, and it's a testimony, I think, to colleagues working not just at the BERA office, which is, it speaks for itself, the work that they've been doing over the last year, but also to the work of the SIGs, and perhaps too to the creation of the digital resources webpage that Dom mentioned a little bit earlier, which means that we'll be able to be very, very reactive in terms of creating resources, digital resources very, very quickly, and also showcasing those live events which are now online. It's been an extraordinary year. We've given awards to a number of different groupings. We're in the process of launching new awards. We have a new award coming out next year for undergraduates. We've got the deadlines for the BERA Doctoral Thesis Award and Master's Dissertation Awards on the 13th of January. We've got a BERA National Student Research Award for pupils and students in primary and secondary schools in the making. So there's lots planned for next year. Again, just want to highlight the work of all of the special interest groups. A big thanks to Oliver Hooper and Yue Xu for the work with the Early Careers Researcher Network. One of the changes there is that the definition of ECR from 3 years has now been extended to 5 years. That's to bring this definition in line with other learning societies. In terms of equality and diversity, BERA are taking a major focus on that in terms of membership, but also the ways in which the various groups within BERA are made up, and we're reviewing all of our policies in terms of everything that takes place, whether it be to do with resource production or the makeup of individual committees. We'd like all BERA members who haven't already done so, please, to fill in your member profiles on our websites so that we can better monitor and act on issues of diversity. We're reviewing, as I say, all current processes which we've identified within the organisation. So there'll be more of that as the year rolls out. I'd like to thank also, on behalf of the Engagement Committee, colleagues that have just taken over the leadership of the British Curriculum Forum, SIG, the Curriculum Assessment Pedagogy SIG, Richard Poutney and Wai Peng Yang, after the competitive round of applications for the BCF Curriculum Investigation Grant, we had 3 winners, 1 school from England and 2 from Scotland. So everything else goes into much more detail in the report. I hope that gives a very, very quick overview. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Turn of Conference and Events Committee, and for those of you who don't know me, Mary Beaton, and I have the pleasure of being the chair of the Conference and Events Committee. Again, as my colleagues have said, the detail is all in the report, and I just want to highlight 1 or 2 events we've had this year. And I think probably the major event seemed that we had to make, quite sadly, the decision to cancel the 2020, or rather postpone it, the conference in Liverpool. But I think that the more lasting impact will not be that cancellation, but actually the rapid move to the provision of online digital events. And I think that has resulted in a quality resource that is easily accessible to BERA members and for them to return to, because it's hosted on the BERA website. And I'd just like to thank all of those who worked so hard to enable that. The office team, the SIG conveners and other presenters, many of whom had planned originally to present at the 2020 conference. The other major event that you will see in the report is that BERA have already made the decision that 2021 conference will be a digital event. We felt very strongly that it was important that we provide certainty for our members. And so we've made that decision now so that the members know exactly what's going to happen in September 21. Not to replace the face-to-face, but actually to provide, and I think we're in a really good place to provide a quality digital conference. Usually we close our abstract submission at the end of January. This year, to give you a little bit more time to think about it, it'll probably be towards the end of February, the last day in February instead of the last day of January. And we're looking forward to receiving your abstracts. There'll be a little bit more detail coming out just before Christmas and lots more in the new year. But we look forward to receiving your abstracts for symposia, for individual papers, for posters and for workshops, and then you'll get lots of advice about how it will actually run. I realise that's not a report, but it's just to let members know what we're thinking about. So do start to consider those and think about what you might submit. And finally, I'd like to thank Conference and Events Committee for all their commitment and hard work this year. It's been a challenging year for us, but I think we're in a stronger place at the end. And I think I'm handing over now to Nick.
Thank you, Mari. Yes, I'm Nick Johnson, the Chief Executive of BERA, and like the others, I will assume that either you have read or will be able to read afterwards my my detailed report. I'd also like just to say a few words of thanks. Firstly, to my colleagues in the office team who have adapted our programme and our activity at very short notice initially, and often working in very difficult, challenging circumstances, and just want to pay tribute to their dedication and professionalism in keeping the ship afloat for this year, and actually really enhancing, I think, the offer we can make to members and indeed to the wider community. And I'd also like to thank BERA members, particularly those also presenting at this AGM who take on leadership roles within the organisation, and our SIG conveners and others who, again, in very challenging circumstances, have continued to give their time to the organisation and to the wider community. It is all much appreciated. In terms of my report, again, most of it is there. The things I would stress really are what is a running theme of my AGM reports, really the relationship with UCL IOE. And I'm pleased that this year we can report good news really on sort of three fronts. First of all, in that we have managed to settle outstanding arrangements and money that we have accrued. And that was a big commitment from UCL IOE, and I'm grateful to them and to Simon Buller as the head of operations for making that decision. So that not only gives us stability, but also has released some funds into our reserves. And I won't steal Sean's thunder too much in terms of doing that, but it's made a significant difference to our bottom line, and particularly in a year such as this with the cancellation of conference and a lot of other changes has been incredibly helpful in our ability to plan as well as the bottom line. Furthermore, we've been able to make some very good progress on finalising our ongoing relationship with UCL IOE and getting some clarity as to that. Part of that has been bringing in an external HR consultant looking at BERA's own employment options and arrangements, and that work has been going very well with cooperation from UCL IOE, and we hope to bring recommendations on that to the council meeting in January, and also a degree of confirmation that rather ironically in this year of all years that the office space we occupy in Ensley Gardens is ours for the foreseeable future. I think I speak for all of the office team, and we look forward to getting back there at some point. I know some colleagues have been in for 1 or 2 days, but basically we've not been in at all since March. And also, if anyone has been writing to us in post form, we don't know where that post is. It is somewhere within UCL. We will retrieve it at some point, but please use email as the best way of getting hold of us. So that's sort of the main thing I would like to say, really. And also just to confirm, I mean, we'll come up with a later item in terms of the elections to council, but it was incredibly welcome to see such a strong field of candidates standing for council this year, and we've been able to add some really good and active members of the organisation this year, and we hope to be able to do the same next year. And then the other thing I would stress is the point that others have made as well, which is the ongoing commitment to equality and diversity, and that's something that I'm personally incredibly committed to and passionate about, and we as an organisation look to do better on that. And again, coming to council in January will be a detailed action plan as to how we're going to do that will be reported back annually at AGM, so you can all as members track our progress against those commitments that we make. I've not got into the finances on this one. Again, Sean and I will maybe answer any questions people may have on that, but I'm now going to hand over to Sean as our treasurer to go through some of those detailed financial reports. So over to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sean Hayes, the Treasurer of BERA and also Chair of the Finance and Operations Committee. I'd like to give a big thank you to my committee members, Leslie, Diana and Jane, and my good friend of 30 years standing, Steve Strand, who stood down from the committee this year. I'd also like to thank the BERA office who support me and my committee incredibly well. As Treasurer of BERA, one of my roles is to reassure the association and its members that we are operating on a secure financial footing. Of course, we all know we're living through one of the most challenging years in our history with the backdrop of the global COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, of course, this has placed some pressure on BERA, as it will have on all such organisations. However, I want to reassure members that we are well placed financially to come through this challenge. Like other BERA colleagues, I'm not going to dwell on the fine detail of the accounts, but they are available in the AGM pack with full financial details there for people to have a look at. But if I look back at the published 2019 accounts, which is effectively what we do, we look back at the previous year's accounts at every AGM. What they do show is they show a surplus in funds for the year end of £348,508. Compared to a smaller surplus of a bit over 117,000 in 2018. What this means for BERA is that we ended up with a total fund balance of 1.859 million as at the 31st of December 2019. That's up from 1.5 million in 2018 and higher again than 2017. We also continue to maintain healthy reserves, which are split between a substantial sum invested within a managed investment fund and cash that we hold in relatively quick access accounts so we can respond to more immediate need. As I've said, our net assets were 1.859 million in the 2019 balance sheet. And when set alongside our annual expenditure of just over 1 million, this tells us we have a ratio of 1.8 to 1 for reserves to turnover, up from 1.5 to 1 in 2018 and 1.4 to 1 in 2017. What this means for BERA is that we're well placed financially for the immediate future, and we're able to respond positively to any financial pressures in the medium term. Yes, I have to acknowledge that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative impact on our turnover in 2020. This has meant that both income and expenditure are projected to be down around 30% for the full year, which of course will end at the end of December. But because both income and expenditure are equally down, it actually means we're not going to lose any money in this financial year. Of course, we have to also think of the longer term and the things that might impact on us adversely. And besides the COVID-19 pandemic, we also have to be aware that if there were risks to our publication income due to open access, or if we had a big loss in conference income, they could, of course, have an impact in terms of reducing our reserves moving forward. Again, I can reassure you that we will monitor our future income streams very closely. We will be even more financially prudent than ever. And to that effect, we have taken a very sensible and pragmatic approach to budget setting for 2021. At the November meeting of our Finance and Operations Committee, we endorsed that sensible approach to budget setting for the year ahead. In the course of 2019, we also added £400,000 to our investment fund, bringing that investment up to 900,000. And the value of that in the 2019 accounts was 1.078 million, an increase in value of 178,000 over the original investment. Of course, we have to remember, as one would always say, investments can go up and down in value, but we will monitor that situation closely. Overall, colleagues, I genuinely remain optimistic that we can come through the challenge of COVID-19 and the pandemic and still remain in a secure and healthy financial position, enabling us to do everything we hope to do moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. It's back with me to do the risk register, which comes up here. And again, I'd like to thank Diana Burton, who's the chair of the Risk Assessment and Audit Committee, and colleagues on that committee for the work that they do. Obviously, this was one of those years when that work and the sort of the notional risks come to play, and suddenly we were faced with dealing with some of those risks that we've long identified, and in a situation where we were finding it very difficult to mitigate against some of them. But as Sean has outlined there, financially we've come through relatively robustly, and as Jerry said earlier, in terms of membership as well, that has held up well, and we've been able to adapt how we've worked as an organisation. So the register is here presented for members' information. The only thing I would say in terms of assessing risk going forward, and Sean has touched on it there, is that clearly the work of the organisation has been fairly stable for certainly the last 5 or 6 years, and the income and expenditure and the business model that we work on with our income shares coming from a combination of publication royalties, membership income, and conference and events. And in a sense, all three of those are facing unpredictable times at the moment. Open access and the outcome of the UKRI consultation on that will come sometime in 2021, and alongside the ongoing impact of COVID and what that might mean for membership and how we run our events in the future. So we're at a period of instability and flux, but as Sean has outlined, I think we are on top of those risks as best we can and mitigating them, and we have the financial wherewithal to survive turbulent times and to come through and to still invest in our community and in our members. So that is all I was going to say in terms of the risk register, and I'm now going to hand back to Dom for the next item.
Thanks, Nick. Are you going to stay on now? No, perhaps not. Well, the next item on the agenda is the notification of the election results. And so, Nick, I don't know if you want to come back in to say anything further about this.
Yes, I'm back. Yeah, I mean, just as I said in my report, we were delighted to have such a strong range of interest from members for the election results, and we've had the outcomes there. So this was what was presented as the outcome of those elections. So I don't think I've got much to add there, but I would also add that currently we are seeking nominations for council for the next term of office starting in 2021. So I would again encourage members to look at those opportunities, consider whether they can make a contribution, and we are keen to hear from members of all backgrounds and bringing a set of different perspectives to council. But it was good to see so much interest, and hopefully that interest will be maintained as we go forward in terms of that. And again, as Dom indicated earlier, and I said in my report, I'd like to thank Gary McCulloch for his service for BERA over a number of years in a number of roles on council before becoming president and vice president. And we will look to mark Gary's time with us when we can once again gather again in person, probably sometime towards the end of next year, but we hope to be able to do that.
Thanks, Nick. And so now we move to item 6, minutes and matters arising. People will have seen the minutes in the pack. We are very happy to receive questions also now about the minutes, about any of the reports. And if once they get fed through, we'll be happy to answer them. Minor matters in the minutes can always be also done via BERA Secretariat. So I'm just waiting for questions to feed through, and there's one here already. This is a question for Vivian about publications. Do we know why the review of education was not accepted for the SSI? And this is a question from Mary James. Hello, Mary.
Yeah, we've had some feedback, but not sufficiently detailed, really. So we are a bit frustrated. So we are asking for more detail, and we'll be continuing to work on it. So yeah, it wasn't what we'd hoped.
In my experience, unfortunately, the feedback is very minimal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So if there are no further questions, which I cannot see any at the moment, then we are going to, well, I'm going to formally thank everyone before I forget. Thank you ever so much for attending. It's really important, actually, that we have people helping us, reflecting on the work that's been done. So we really do appreciate it. Nick is going to finish today's event by a few reflections, thinking forward. I'll stay on as well. So the meeting is formally closed, but we have a little bit more time with Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Dom, and thank you to everyone. What I would start with saying is that we hope at some point we can probably do this next year in person, even though we've taken the decision that the conference itself needs to be virtual because of the lead-in time. We would hope that at some point in the autumn term of 2021, we'll be able to have a standalone event, which will include the AGM plus other elements to it, including recognising some of the award winners that we've given funding to, or recognise their achievements in the past year or two that we've been unable to do. So hopefully this particular event next year will be done in person, even though conference itself will be virtual. The only other things I was going to just draw people's attention to really are just those things that are upcoming. So I've mentioned already the council elections. Please do check those out if you're interested in putting yourselves forward. Secondly, we've also, again, you've heard mention of the BERA podcast. We've now sort of come into the end of the first series of those, as it were. And the last one to come out shortly will actually be a conversation involving all the committee chairs that you've heard here today in terms of reflecting on the year and some of those activities in perhaps a more informal way. So please do check out our podcasts, and we'll be back with those in the new year. With a series of those. Also, you would have seen at the start of today's event a number of our upcoming events already planned for next year. Please do check those out and register for those. From next year, our virtual events will continue to be free for all BERA members and have a small charge for non-members. And all our events, not only are you able to join them live as a BERA member, but also they'll be on the members section of the BERA website as a digital resource, so you can access them, all the recordings of those events at any time, and they will stay there for you to be able to access as members. And the only other thing just to plug immediately coming up is the open awards that we have. Again, our annual prestigious awards for masters and doctoral theses. Please do think of either putting yourselves forward for those or putting your students forward for those. They're two of the most significant awards that we make really as an organisation, and the deadline for those is in the new year. So again, please do check those out on the website and do that. I think that's probably it in terms of initial plugs. There is plenty more on the website and in our weekly newsletter, which I hope you all do get. If you don't, please contact the BERA office to make sure your university is not blocking that through its firewall, because that newsletter does keep everyone up to date with all the activities going on in the organisation, but also in the wider community, and there may be things there that you are interested in. So I think that's it from me in terms of plugs for the future, unless there's anything else you want to add, Dom, or you think I've forgotten.
No, I think that's fantastic. All I was thinking of was, given what we've managed to do this year, almost entirely digitally, imagine how good we will be when we put the digital back with the physical. I'm very excited about the prospects looking forward. Thanks again to everyone. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you soon.